Back here on WGWE, and we've been talking about a big Memorial Day ceremony right up the road in Little Valley. Citizens advocating memorial preservation. Camp's going to hold a brief Memorial Day ceremony for a very specific reason, and an interesting one as well that maybe the whole family can be involved with. And we've got some folks in studio to talk with us more about it. First up, the camp president, Tom Stetz. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning.
Thanks for coming in, and maybe you could explain to the folks exactly a little bit about camp.
Well, camp is that stands for Citizens Advocating Memorial Preservation. We're a nonprofit group that was basically organized in November of 2014, spurred on by the county's plans to demolish the Cattaraugus County Memorial and Historical Building on the corner of Court and 7th Street in Little Valley. That building was a memorial dedicated to the soldiers and sailors from the county in the Civil War. So that's how we got started. Now,
there might be some folks that are not familiar with that. They might be hearing it right now and going, wow, that's pretty cool. Now, we want to make sure to mention the memorial hasn't been there since the Civil War. It's been about over 100 years since that was erected. And, Tom, I think it's pretty interesting that this is one of the few, if not the only, war memorial. It's an actual building. Usually we see a monument, an obelisk, something like that, even a plaque. I mean, this has more than historical significance. This is a real kind of something to bring the family to.
Correct. It got its start in 1908 after the county's centennial celebration that was held in Salamanca. There were some funds left over from that event, and people from the county decided that they needed a historical society and a place to store some records, and it evolved into becoming a memorial to the Civil War veterans and a museum. That's how it got started in the first use.
We're going to be talking also with our friend John Scarano here very shortly while we have Tom talking about the ceremony on Monday, Memorial Day, at 9 a.m. before the annual Little Valley Memorial Day Parade. Tom, I think it's, we've heard a lot in the news lately about, especially in the South, obviously, down in New Orleans, taking down some of the Confederate monuments. We're not here to argue back and forth over the Civil War, but I would imagine when we have these monuments erected, when we have these memorials, it's something that we not only need to preserve just the physical part, but we need to preserve the history, too. There's a lot of teaching and learning that we can have from these memorials.
You're very correct. That's the one key thing that camp is striving to do, is to preserve it as a memorial and to educate the residents of Cattaraugus County how it was built, why it was built, and why it should continue to exist.
About 3,500 county men served in more than 180 different Union regiments. There's a lot of folks in the area, not just in Little Valley, but I'm sure all around the area, from Machias back over to Jamestown area to the other side of Chautauqua Lake, that might have family roots that date back to where they had a family member serving in one of these regiments.
Right, you're exactly correct. The biggest units from Cattaraugus County were the 154th New York Regiment. That was called the Hardtack Regiment, and the 64th New York Infantry. That later became called the Cattaraugus Regiment. And those regiments were basically made up mostly of Cattaraugus men, some from Chautauqua County, fought side by side in many conflicts.
Yeah, and so many conflicts in the Civil War, and I think a lot of folks might not even realize, and we're going to bring John in on this here in a minute. When we think the Civil War and people think the Civil War, they think the South, or as far north, maybe Gettysburg, and don't even realize that folks from all over what was the Union then were part of the Civil War. Even though a skirmish might not actually have occurred in their state or their county, there's still so much history that dates back well over 150 years.
Yeah, you're correct. You don't think of Minnesota or Michigan, Illinois, those places, right. But, they contributed many, many men to that conflict.
Let's bring in our friend John Scarano. John, talk to us about your involvement with camp.
Well, I came in a little late with camp, about maybe a couple of years or so ago. I'm a veteran. Mm-hmm. This is a veterans issue. We also have a Civil War descendant, Cattaraugus County Civil War descendant in our family, is Winfield Scott Kenyon. captured at Gettysburg, prisoner of war for well over a year. His health was affected severely for the rest of his life. And I'm also a Vietnam veteran, Chris. And I know what it's like to be forgotten.
And thank you for your service.
Thank you. I love hearing that. I really do. I appreciate that. But so for me, that was my involvement, not just the family member, but it was a veterans issue. We cannot forget these men's service. This was one of the bloodiest wars that any serviceman fought because of the technology, the crude technology and stuff at the time.
Sure.
I'm also the webmaster for camp.
Right.
And if I can go ahead and plug that now, www.cattcomemorial.com. That's CATTCO Memorial. Please, folks, those you're listening, please go take a look at our site. And if you're lucky enough to receive one of the camp quizzes, see if you can answer as many of those as possible. The answers will be available after the Memorial Day ceremony.
Yeah, that's not only a fun quiz, John, but very, again, like we were mentioning with Tom, very informative, a great learning piece, and online catcomemorial.com, as John said, you can check that out. Talking with John Scarano here about the Citizens Advocating Memorial Preservation, the Cat County Memorial and Historical Building in Little Valley. Again, John, you mentioned about the veterans, and of course, with Memorial Day weekend, a great time to kind of reflect a little bit on how veterans matter to us in everyday life. And as you said, I mean, we can go back to Revolutionary War.
Yes.
How important veterans are in our everyday life. So again, as we made mention with Tom, this is a great opportunity to teach younger people. They might get caught up in their screens with their phones and their tablets, but to be able to physically go to a memorial and learn about what the sacrifices that some people made is just invaluable.
It is invaluable. To really bring that home, if you visit our site, you will see the picture that was taken on the day that the Memorial and Historical Building was dedicated. And you see these men, and then it becomes very, very personal. In that respect. And so what a lot of people who may be related to some of these Civil War veterans, they may be related to some real heroes. We have one in particular buried in Little Valley, Captain Fuller. Great story. I encourage you again, go up on the website. You can read all about this man who participated in 10 campaigns and Civil War battles before he lost his life at Gettysburg. And in fact, you were talking about earlier about all the states that were represented. Folks, go to Gettysburg. Look at those statues, one after another, monuments. It was amazing, absolutely amazing.
Talking with Tom Stetz and John Scarano here about the camp Memorial Day ceremony in Little Valley. Again, the ceremony right after the Little Valley Memorial Day Parade at 9 a.m. Everyone is invited to attend the parade, the ceremony, the cemetery ceremony, and the Memorial and Historical Building. And Tom, just some brief history. There have been folks that have wanted to kind of, I don't know if it's because if it's an eyesore, or they think the cost is going to be too much to maintain. But through the years, there's been a little bit of a, I don't want to say fight, for lack of a better term, to keep the memorial. And you've gone out, you've got some funds. Nobody's having to, pay over the barrel to keep this going. But you and your folks at camp have worked tirelessly to make sure that this memorial stays and even gets a little bit of upkeep.
Yeah, that's correct, Chris. It's been an up and down struggle. We've had a lot of high points and a lot of low points. Some of the organizations that helped us out immensely in the beginning were the Landmark Society of Western New York, which provided us a grant whereby we hired a firm out of Buffalo to do a feasibility study, and that was determined that it's a sound structure and it's worth rehabilitating. The American Legion is behind us, a couple of national organizations, the Civil War Trust, Civil War Times. And it's people and the local people that feel that this should be preserved. The county, for whatever reason, moved the museum part of the operations to Machias in 2004, and then the adjoining building, the Board of Elections, was moved to the Little Valley School in 2014. So both those structures are vacant, and we feel that they could be rehabbed and reused and be a gem, really an attraction for tourism to the county and the county seat. We're just plugging along and trying to make sure that it stays up.
Yeah, and absolutely a fantastic bunch of folks that are working to save the memorial building. And Tom, we always want to mention too, camp could always use some volunteers and some folks pitching in as well, right?
You're absolutely correct. Like John says, go to our website. There's all kinds of places that you can volunteer. We're always looking for new members, especially younger ones. That's most of us have got gray hair and glasses, and we're looking for the younger kids to get involved.
So we've been talking with Tom Stetz and John Scarano, Citizens Advocating Memorial Preservation. Don't forget, there's going to be a Memorial Day ceremony Monday. The ceremony will be at 9 a.m. before the annual Little Valley Memorial Day Parade and the cemetery ceremony. Everyone's invited to attend both events to honor America's veterans. I can't thank Tom and John enough for joining us here in the studio, catcomemorial.com, and we'll put that link up on our Facebook page, too, to make sure that you head over there. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
So thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.